Well, I'm at the World Economic Forum here in Davos, Switzerland, and the theme this time around is spirit of dialogue. Given how India and US don't have a trade deal yet, it becomes increasingly important to try and analyze where India stands and what's the investment climate when it comes to India. And who better than Romal Shetty himself from Deloitte to talk about that. Romal, great to have you on ET Now. Thank you so much for your time. I have to talk about how is India positioned in this very chaotic and ever-changing world right now when it comes to the investment climate.
See, I think if you look at the last year, I think we beat all estimates, whether IMF estimates or even RBI's own estimates. So India is probably doing far better than anybody else globally. And I think what's also happening is India is also doing a lot of reforms. So whether it's on the GST side, whether it's on the labor code side, right, the income tax side. So I think there's a lot of reforms also happening. And you're also seeing newer age sectors, that is the data centers, those things coming up. So all in all, very, very fragile geopolitical world. We don't have a deal, but still India is a shining star. So, and I would still say that it's probably the place to invest.
Right. But Romal, as we see the world is getting more and more inclusive, and as is India, make in India and consume in India as well. How competitive do you think India is right now to try and attract global money?
So I think there are a few key sectors. For example, if you take healthcare, I think wherever there is technology, there is scale and there is an unmet demand. If you take these three factors in, and India has some of these. So if you take healthcare, for example, clearly is one sector. If you take financial services, that is clearly a sector. So we have that potential of unmet demand as well, and because of technology we are scaling. So therefore India is attractive. But to be competitive globally, India needs to move away only from services, software, to a little bit more product, more IP, more R&D. We spend 0.6% of our GDP. South Korea spends 5.5%, 6%, China spends 4%, US spends 4%. That shift is very important because even in AI, my view is one of our biggest opportunities is AI. It's also one of the biggest disruptors. But in AI, if we start reimagining business models and not just only optimizing things, I think that is where we can take India to the next level.
But all the avenues that you're talking about, Romal, are also extremely capital intensive, right? Do you think both the government as well as India Inc. are ready to loosen their purse strings and spend on that kind of innovation that you just highlighted?
You have to take a leap of faith. So there are two factors. I think one is the uncertainty in the world is so much, so private consumption is becoming a challenge because people want some kind of certainty, because today you deal with a country, you don't know if tariffs are going to be laid on them and they can't trade. So data flow is becoming a problem, money flow is becoming a problem. So there's a lot of challenges. So I think once there's a little bit more clarity and certainty, clarity is very important, then I think you will see the purse strings and some of the investments that you see in data centers and other coming up. Of course, those are global companies that are coming. But India Inc. also is involved in these large ones. So I think it's a question of time, but uncertainty, of course, prevails.
So where do you think the opportunity, or rather India opportunity, lies at this juncture? You talked about a lot of domestic reforms, which are definitely getting consumption back into the economy. But what's left to be done?
Yeah. So I think the ease of doing business. Again, India has done a lot, but the ease of doing business should be, you should be able to set up anything in 10 days' time. That's the kind of thing that we should really, really move fast towards. The states are wooing now, but to make it even more attractive, they need to create certain, co-spaces. For example, like I'll give you an example of a digital economic zone. So can you create where you have GPU-based data centers, you can have GCCs, you can have power, you can have startups, you can have academia. Right? And the startups and academia is also a very important factor, because you see some of the most developed countries in the West have grown because of the academia and startup and the corporate combination. So we need to enable that to happen much faster, innovation to happen much faster, R&D to happen much faster.
But you know, again, it all comes back to whether or not that kind of capital expenditure will take place for all these innovations that you talked about. Do you think the private sector will take that leap of faith and analyze that this is the need of the hour, these are the avenues that we need to focus in on, and will they spend? That really is the question.
So, you know, even if you see some of the early days, right, you see telco, for example, as an industry, very capital intensive. You had to spend a lot of money, and for many years they didn't make money, right? So it's not that India will not spend. I think it will spend, but yes, we've got to be we've got to be much more bolder, but having looked at geopolitically the world also, I think it's also being a little bit more careful. I think when any of these happens, you always take a step back, you think twice, you plan twice, though today's planning, you don't know what will happen tomorrow, so you don't know how much to plan for. So I think I have no doubt that India will spend money, absolutely.
Right. Romal, you also very rightly highlighted about the entire AI supply chain or ecosystem, if I can call it that. And India as of now has made an advent, but it's only restricted to data centers. Where do you think India's AI journey, which up until now has only been an IT services hub, where within the AI piece can we move forward from just data centers, which we're at right now?
My view is really, I mean, we're good at, I mean, you know, we have a history of mathematics, we have a history of understanding patterns and data sets. So really bringing in that innovation. So what I mean is, can we solve some of the cancer-related problems through the data that we actually have? And India has massive amounts of data, more than probably most countries in the world have. Can we make sense of that? Can we give access to credit? Right? Not because you have already collaterals, but even without collaterals, just based on AI. I think that is the thing, and the future is, you know, can I build newer drugs, for example? So I think the innovation part and the product part, not just the services, but product plus services, is probably where India needs to also move in.
So you're quite excited about healthcare, clearly, right?
Healthcare, clearly, because you just think, I mean, you know, all of us have had somebody in the family go through a difficult thing. And if you can solve some of it, which you can solve, earlier you couldn't solve without AI and agentic and Gen AI, you can actually solve this much faster. So I think that is where, and also financial services, I really think that's one of the biggest areas for India.
How do you see the, you know, sort of future of work evolving in India and globally, given that hybrid models, automation, and everything is changing so fast and it's been so dynamic?
So one of the things that we really believe is AI has to be sort of human-led and AI powered, right? So that's really what we think. So how do you skill people to work with machines, whether it's humanoids, robots, or whether it's digital assistants? I don't think we're doing enough from that perspective. Second is the newer generation probably wants to do a lot more on purpose. They're not like saying, hey, I want a career and I want to spend all my life in a particular place. So I think you've got to look at how the intergenerational workforce is also changing, and how are you reskilling people? The reskills means that, are you able to frame a problem better, right? Are you able to prompt better, right? Rather than, and are you able to do judgments better? I think those are, and curiosity, those are skills that are required, which are different from saying, I want you to do 5 things and do those 5 things well.
So what is your assessment, and let's get a little myopic here, about how business sentiment is on ground in India?
See, I mean, I'll take 2 parts to it. One, like I said, globally, that everybody is seeing, and every day there's a challenge. So, you know, there can't be anybody who says that I'm pretty comfortable with what's happening. Nobody is, right? Yeah. As far as just India is concerned, I think our consumption levels are increasing. If you see per capita is slowly increasing, and my belief is that when the per capita goes at about 3,500 to 4,000, then the consumption is not going to be linear. It's going to be much faster than the growth of per capita. So I think that is also what people are looking. We've got another 100, 200, 300 million people coming into the middle class, you know, upper middle class. That will create massive amount of demand. So in the long run, very positive. Short run, we have some challenges, but still, I still think we're standing out comparatively to all other countries.
So let's talk about, you know, what the short term actually entails. And let's talk about India earnings growth. And let's also talk about all that the government has done in terms of reforms and whether that can act as a catalyst to consumption growth.
I mean, you clearly look at, for example, when GST rationalization happened, there were a lot of quarters which said that basically we're going to lose GST revenues dramatically. The government coffers will come down, but GST has only gone up, right?
Yeah.
Labor code has just happened. There's so many MSMEs. Forget the big corporate, right? But you look at MSMEs. MSMEs are very scared today to hire because there are lots of laws about hiring and firing people or hiring for demand. This is going to now ease a lot of people. So we'll see a lot of micro entrepreneurs. And India is a country of a lot of micro entrepreneurs. It's not just only state-run businesses, it's a lot of micro. So I do think that this is an opportunity we should take, not to say, hey, the world is, whatever it is, to say that really unleash reforms. The second generation of all reforms across, like I said, credit. I do think credit is one place where if people have access to credit, entrepreneurs have access to credit, right? I think you'll just see the country booming. Absolutely. So those are some of the reforms that will continue, and I think that's what India is doing actually, taking this opportunity to change some of the laws and compliances. I mean, we have a lot of compliances still.
Yeah, we do. Brings me to budget, just a few days away this time around on a Sunday. What can we expect the budget to deliver?
See, I think what has traditionally now happened over the last few years is there's a lot of reforms happen outside the budget. And during the year and not necessarily the budget. But I think India will continue to manage fiscal deficit very well. I think we are fiscally very prudent. We've done well, and it's helped us. What we did in COVID has actually helped us compared to inflation. Our inflation is one of the lowest. But I still think that there are some reforms. Maybe the budget is an opportunity to do ease of doing business, export, for example, export services, for example, ease of doing that. Because we need to also look at more countries to diversify. I think this is a time for everybody to diversify much more than what they were, even for India Inc. Not to, sort of just be in one place. I think it's important to diversify. And of course, planning and being agile, because agility is also important. You don't know what will happen tomorrow. You can't plan for everything.
Yeah. So I have to ask, where do you think capital is going to move next? While the world is chasing AI, and India in that sense is the anti-AI trade right now. But where do you think the capital is going to move next when it comes to India? And where do you think the profit pool could get created?
I mean, obviously, globally, I think all the investment is going in largely in the Western countries, largely in the US. That's where a significant amount of... but my view is, we don't need to necessarily build everything. There are some things that we have to build, but we've got the data sets. My view is that is a gold mine. And we've got to build on the data sets because that can help, that can give a lot more things. Because ultimately, what is AI? It's based on some data and you can get some inferences. Somebody else has a lot of the money and the infrastructure, but I think we have and we also can do data centers also at much cheaper cost than anywhere else in the world. But we've got to get power, we've got to get water, right? Those are things that are there. We have a reasonable amount of power comparatively to others, but those are things that we need to do much better.
And in terms of profitability, what sector do you think is in ship shape and in good health when it comes to India?
No, I mean, I think the financial services, the banks have been doing well. They're much more cleaner, right? So you see, obviously, manufacturing is the one place where I actually am more optimistic, because you will see physical AI coming into manufacturing, and that's very important. All right, Asia actually leads the world for physical AI. It's not actually the Western world. It's actually Asia. The top 3 countries in the world are Asian countries. India has to get there, but the top 3 are Asian countries. So again, manufacturing is a place where I think that they can start by doing on the robotic side. They can bring in a lot more profitability as well, and of course the digital market, the digital platforms. I do think that as India becomes more consumption heavy, you start improving your consumption, you'll see profitability increasing as well, and AI to use for that purpose also, right? And not just to say, can I do something faster? So I can do faster, cheaper, better, but also innovate.
Okay, great, Romal. Have to ask you, what's been the most exciting meeting that you've had so far?
Yesterday there was the Time dinner, the Time 100 dinner, and some fantastic speakers. You had Matt Damon, and you had a different set of people. But there was one company that was working on bringing extinct species back to life. I mean, this is Jurassic Park, right? And I said
goosebumps.
I said that, and I said, is this like a far-fetched thing? I said, no, 2028. I said, wow. I mean, No, it's just amazing.
That's
so
crazy.
Yeah, some people you meet and so what all the world is actually doing, right? So
I don't even know if it's right at some level, you know.
yeah, so they say that because the world has lost a lot of biodiversity, right? And that biodiversity is very important for the world to flourish.
Sure.
They can bring back some of it. But again, just like AI, you know, what do you control, what do you not control, and how do you have governance? Because that's the other important thing.
Yeah.
You need to have governance when it comes to AI because it can proliferate disruptively.
Yeah. I mean, today we're reviving extinct, tomorrow we can create new, right?
Including humans.
Yeah. Okay, Romal, fascinating.
Lovely.
Thank you so
Lovely
much
to
for
see
your
you.
time.
Lovely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Aisha.